and she's earned multiple Emmys to include induction into the prestigious Silver Circle by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. She's an active member of the community, and you can catch her nightly on WSBTV Action News.
She may have grown up in New York City, but Jovita Moore is a fully fledged Atlantan now, having worked for Channel 2 Action News for almost 20 years.
When the red light goes on and the bright lights are on at the WSBTV studio, Jovita is the consummate professional.
Jovita knows how to go out and get that story. She knows how to present that story, and she knows how to make you care about that story. She's somebody people can relate to through that screen, through that computer. And that's something you just don't see every day.
Kids come into the studio for tours in the afternoon. She's right there to answer all the questions, give them a little bit of an encouragement, a great smile, and always just wonderful to work with.
In 2012, when I turned the chair over to Jovita, I knew I was passing it on to the perfect person for the job. And I'm so proud of her every day as she makes it her own.
Channel 2 Action News.
Please join me in welcoming Jovita Moore to AI Live. Hello, Jovita. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I am just doing great. I'm just thrilled to be here with you today. Thank you for joining us. So
Thank
first
you
of
for
all,
having me.
oh, absolutely. I want to congratulate you on being honored with the Silver Circle Award. Let's just start with that. Please tell everybody really, what that means and what that really means to you, because it's really a huge honor.
It is a huge honor. Anytime you're recognized by your peers, especially those who have been in this business and done so much over the years, and by an institution as prestigious as the Natus institution, it was definitely an honor for me. I almost felt like I was nowhere near deserving compared to some of the other people who got it that same year. So it is a very special honor. It's like a pinnacle in this business to be able to get that induction into the Silver Circle.
Well, I think that you are very deserving. You're being modest. So, uh, but I want to ask you something else that I think is very, very exciting. And I want you to really share with all of us, with all of our viewers and your viewers. Tell us everything about WSB tonight.
New branding, a
WSB
new way
Tonight.
of exploring issues at 11
Congressman
o'clock.
John Start
And
classes.
certainly when we found
I have a
ourselves
job.
in the midst
How
of
are
a
we going to make this
pandemic,
work? Hope
what
for
better time
coronavirus
to be able
vaccine
to
continues to
pause
grow.
and
New
take
insight
time
on what
and look
today's
at
big
that very
developments
big
mean.
issue.
Everyone is
And
very
as
confident
we've
that this
seen,
vaccine
it
is going to be
impacts
working a
all of
lot
us,
of different.
and it impacts all of us in so many different ways. So it was a great time to sort of relaunch our 11 o'clock newscast so that we could look into all of the ways that this pandemic has affected our lives, our jobs, our schools, our places of worship. Every single aspect of life has been impacted by this in some way. So it was a great opportunity to be able to jump on that and be able to take a topic and look at it for 3, 4, 5 minutes, which we're not usually able to do in local news. So we're really proud of our efforts so far. We hope that viewers are enjoying it and also getting it, like understanding why we're doing this. And really, we're doing this for them so that they can get that information that they need every night, and not just sort of go over it, very quickly in a minute, but to be able to discuss it in a longer format.
I think that your viewers do get it, because I know I, for one, when I watch the news, sometimes I need more. Those 30 seconds, those 45 seconds, they really aren't enough. So I think diving a little bit more in depth is definitely a service that you are all providing to the community. Um,
I
but
certainly think
speaking
that so many people have questions too. So we want to be able to answer as many questions as possible. We're getting questions all day, Vincent, from all of our viewers about different aspects of their lives and how that's been impacted. And so we know that people have so many questions, and the questions don't stop, right? It's almost like the information is new every single day. So we have to keep up on it and give it back to the viewers.
Well, Jovita, in these times of COVID-19, the information is new, really on a daily basis, it seems. And you've referenced that quite a few times already, and that's one of my questions for you. Is really it's kind of twofold, because it's professional and it's kind of personal, because I mean, professionally speaking, how are things at the station? How has your job shifted or changed? But personally speaking, as a parent, uh, what's happening with schools and online learning? I feel like everyone, regardless of your age, has to change how we know things and how we do things. So, how is that impacting you personally and professionally?
So pretty much the second week of March, everything changed, right, for all of us. So my kids were at
Right.
home. My daughter was finishing her senior year in high school, and we were getting excited about that. All of the senior activities were still to come. They barely got through spring break before everything started to shut down. So I had a senior at home trying to finish her classes, maintain her grades, and really realized that she was going to miss out on so many of the traditions of senior year. So we were dealing with that. And I had a son who was finishing middle school, and when he should have been getting excited about going to high school, instead he was, finding his assignments online in his Chromebook and not seeing his teachers anymore or his basketball team. So everything changed at home, and all of a sudden I found myself, having to wake them up in the morning, even when they didn't want to, get them in front of their computers and make sure that they were doing their work. All the while, my emails were nonstop, work completely changed. Everyone was working from home except pretty much the anchors and sort of the directors and the engineers who have to be here in the building to push the button so that we get on television. But there were days, Vincent, that I could count in this newsroom, maybe as few as 6 people. And it's been that way since March. We opened up just a little in June, and that was for people who had offices. They could come back into the newsroom if they had an office. But for the most part, we kept a really small bubble since March. So Justin, George, Wendy, and I, we're all separated, physically separated in the newsroom. We see each other in passing. We have to wear masks in our newsroom as well, to keep everyone safe. We have maybe one or two producers who are in the building. Everyone else is working from home. All of our writers are working from home. Our reporters and photographers who you see on the streets at 4, 5, and 6, 10 on digital, and 11 o'clock at night, none of them have stepped foot in the building. They're not allowed to. They all have to work remotely as well. Badges were cut off so that people would not enter the building if they were not directly involved with a newscast. So it's been a whole new world for my coworkers and myself, because now, normally there would be dozens of people right outside my cubicle here, and instead there's maybe 2 right now at this hour. But even in our busiest day, maybe 10 people have been in this newsroom at a time since March. So all of that changed. We have several conference calls all day. I have about 5 conference calls now every day that I have to get on, and that's our best way to communicate. Everyone has to get on the call so we know what's happening. And I have one producer, at least one producer, who is able to talk with us from home. So he's in our ear during a newscast and he can talk to us from home, but that's not even the case with all of the shows. So everything is completely different for us.
We are really all learning a new way of doing things, I think, as a society. And I'm all about change and embracing change, but this specific kind of change, it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. The only solace that I find is that we are truly in this together,
We
right?
are. You don't know anyone
Yeah,
who is not affected by this pandemic,
yeah,
right? And I think that's what makes it a little easier for us to deal with, is that we know it's not a certain segment of the population, it's not a certain demographic, it's not a certain address, it's not a certain part of the metro area. It is all of us, and everyone's lives have been affected by this.
yeah. So, Jovita, can we speak a little bit and really honor Congressman John Lewis? A few years ago, he delivered the keynote address at the Art Institute of Atlanta's graduation. I was there. It was a very moving speech. And there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. It was very moving. And I understand that the night that that John Lewis passed, I believe you were wrapping up or just wrapped up your broadcast for the evening. Um, and I think you went back on air. Can you kind of just fill us in and elaborate on Congressman John Lewis? And I mean, I know you've known him for a very long time.
And I
Mr.
just got
President,
a copy of his autobiography in the
Provost
mail just
Woods,
today. So that's a very
members of the
timely
Oh,
question.
Vice
wow. Oh,
Yeah, I had not read it.
Administration,
Yeah, and I'm going to read it. And of course, now I was a little
and
sad when I opened the package because I wish that I had ordered it long time ago so that he could have probably signed it for me. But
yeah,
that
of
night, that
course.
Friday night, that Friday night, I will share with you guys that we honestly, I kept getting text messages that the congressman had passed. And the problem is, of course, we want to confirm it. Various people, various sources were telling us and some of the managers here in the newsroom that he had passed, but we weren't getting the official confirmation. So we were waiting. We were sort of prepared for it, waiting for the official confirmation, but didn't get it until just about 11:20, maybe 11:30 Friday night. And so we signed off as usual, because it was one of those things where we kind of had to regroup and decide, okay, what do we do and when do we do it? And so we came back on the air once we were able to really get confirmation and feel comfortable, knowing that this was something that at least the family everyone had been notified, everyone who needed to know from that perspective was told already. And so then we went back on the air with sort of a special program breaking in to announce his death and to share with our viewers some of his life and legacy. That was just the beginning, and some things that were already prepared in our newsroom. We were able to share those stories that we had already put together about the congressman. And if you were watching, we did get a few people on the phone with us that evening. The daughter of Hosea Williams, who was on the bridge with Congressman Lewis on that fateful Bloody Sunday. His daughter, Elizabeth Omalami, prominent activist and actress here in the city of Atlanta. She got on the phone with us. Monica and John, of course, who worked with him, in so many years with the congressman, and John Pruitt covered his campaign when he ran for city council. So we wanted their perspective as well, because Monica also knows him, on a more personal level. So we appreciated them getting on the phone with us pretty much at midnight to talk about Congressman Lewis's life and just the timeliness of his passing, with the death of C.T. Vivian being announced early that day. So it made for a very heavy day and really an end of an era. We had Reverend Lowry pass away earlier in this pandemic, and then these two men on the same day. And so those are some of our living legends here in Atlanta, and so integral in the civil rights movement, passing on. So it was a heavy, heavy day, and
Yeah.
as you've seen over the week to follow, a very heavy week as we remembered the life of Congressman Lewis.
Well, what a legacy he leaves behind. Uh, and Jovita, earlier on, I mentioned that you are very active in the community. And I'd like for you to discuss with us about all the service. Well, you provide a lot of community service. You serve on different boards. You work with different organizations and nonprofits. And I think it's just very important to always talk about philanthropy. And I know personally that you work very hard and somehow you always manage to find time to to go to an event to support a cause, and yet you go right back to the station, back to work. I know that's difficult, but I very much admire that.
Uh, Thank you. Thank you for that. I think, first of all, I feel like the worst board member ever right now because I've not been able to partake in a lot of
You're
stuff.
not.
I've missed a lot of virtual meetings, and I've been trying to keep up with like the minutes that we get in the mail, but it's been really hard to do. So I have to promise everyone I'll be a better board member in 2021, because 2020 just is not the year. But early on in my career, Vincent, I learned that to whom much is given, much is required. And I wish that I could even remember the person I was having that conversation with, who pointed out that quote to me in the Bible. And it was because my very first market in Fayetteville, Arkansas, I got a phone call one day from a woman who was encouraging me to become a big sister, the program Big Brothers Big Sister.
Yeah.
And at
Yeah.
first I was just like, why? I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I was really focused on being the best reporter I could be. It was my very first job, my first time away from home, after college. And I didn't understand the importance, and I didn't get why she was calling me. And she pretty much broke it down to me over the phone. And she said, look, you're the only person on television who looks like you. And I have little girls who look like you, and they want to know someone who looks like you because they don't have that person in their life. And she was telling me that as a Black woman on TV, even as young as I was in my 20s at the time, with no connection to kids, right? She was expressing to me how important it was that I was this person, that these little girls were sitting in this small town in Arkansas, sitting at home watching a person who looked like them for the very first time in their life, and seeing that person on television. And she impressed upon me the importance of giving back, almost just based on that. And once she said it, it clicked and it made sense to me, because I remembered growing up in New York City and watching all the anchors on television, and first of all admiring them, but also feeling like they were very important and they were very smart women. And at some point in my life, I guess it clicked in my head that I wanted to grow up to be just like them. And so when this woman started talking about these little, brown or biracial girls, looking at me on television every day, and she said, you have to get involved and you have to talk to them and they need to know you. And I was sold. And that was the first thing that kind of hit me, the importance of to whom much is given, much is required. So just having my job on television and knowing that, there was a little girl sort of, watching and hanging on to every word that I said, that really told me, like, okay, you've got to be involved in the community that you're in. And that started it for me. And that was way back in 1990, my first job in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I point out being biracial because the little girl that she wanted to pair me with was a biracial child who was being raised by one grandparent who was a different color. Her grandparent was a different color, and she needed to see people who looked like her. And that was one thing that this the director of the Big Brothers Big Sisters program explained to me. And once she said it, I got it, because I knew how important it was for that child not to feel alienated or to feel different, even in the neighborhood that she was growing up in. She needed to know that she was okay just the way she is. And I learned that over the years, and I wanted to be able to give that back and share that with her.
Well, that was one very lucky girl, and I bet you were an excellent big sister. So thank you for that. Um, I'm going to introduce something new to our programming today. So we have a segment that we're calling Students Want to Know. So we invite our students. So as you know, we are the Art Institute. So it's not only Atlanta. There are 4 states and 8 campuses, and we invite our students to email us and submit questions that they may have for you. So we don't have a lot of time left, but I do want to point out a couple questions, good questions. A very smart student. His name is Federico, and the questions have to do with employment, with jobs. So I'm just going to read what he's asking. He says, or he asks, are there currently any internship or even work opportunities available within the news station, specifically for writers?
So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that our internship program was cut. Um, and that was because, partly because WSB specifically went through a sale last year. So, our internship program was cut then. We were waiting for the new owners to sort of institute a new program. But then the pandemic hit. And so, just like I
Yeah.
said, the only people in this building are the anchors. We're not allowed to bring anyone into the building right now. So, having an internship is a very difficult thing. I can't speak for the other stations in Atlanta. I'm not sure what they're doing as far as their internship programs, but I know that currently we don't have one. And I'm hoping that once we get through this pandemic and sort of back to normal, whatever normal is, that we'll be able to have an internship program again, because we had a great one. And there are people all across this country right now who are working on television, and they have very good jobs because they interned here at WSB. And so,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we don't have an internship program. Our writers also need a few years of experience. So our writers typically don't start out working here in Atlanta. Their first job after school is usually in a smaller market, and then they kind of work their way up. And currently, I also don't
Yeah.
know of any openings with our writers.
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't think we're hiring right now. We do have a website where that information would be, but I don't think we're hiring right now. So he can monitor that website and keep watching. But I think because the pandemic has affected revenues across the board of every
Yeah.
single TV station, I think that hiring is going to be really tight for a long time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree with you. I mean, I think it was a good question. It's just a bad time. It's just the wrong time. But thank you for your honesty there. The other question we have, though, which I love that this question is being asked, because I typically ask this question of of all of our guests, and that is, what advice would you give to upcoming creatives or artists on breaking into the industry? And before you answer that question, what I love about it, Jovita, is that you are an industry professional. You are seasoned. You are a veteran in the news force, and it's just wonderful when we are at a place in our lives that we can share our wisdom and even our challenges with our younger um, people in society, our college students, or even our high school students. So again, what advice would you give to upcoming creatives or artists on breaking into the industry?
Well, and Vincent, I got to say thank you for that as well. I always will tell you the truth, right? And I'm always
Yeah,
realistic because there were
you
people
have to
along the
be.
way that were, you have to be, and they were
Yeah,
realistic with me. So I think so. If they're talking about breaking into the broadcast industry, again, it's going to be pretty hard. It's going to be tough right now because
yeah,
most places are laying off. Budgets are really tight, if even existent right now, and everything is getting more streamlined. So we have already moved into doing more with less. So that's already happened at TV stations, I am certain, across the city and then across the country, right? So things are shrinking again in this business. Maybe the last time we saw it shrink as much was after 9/11, when everything changed then. So this is one of those times that we're going through where everything is changing. So I think it's going to be really hard for people to sort of break in traditionally, right? But I would say look for those opportunities where you can intern with someone, where you can intern with some sort of news agency, newsroom, news department that will help you develop your writing skills and develop your reporting skills. Those are the two basic things that you need to. If you're a good writer and a good reporter, meaning a good storyteller, then you can get into this business. But you're going to have to look at other ways to do it. It might have to be with an online news agency. If you can get a job there, you might have to create your own as well, because we see a lot of creatives doing that. And if there's any way to get your foot in the door, I would say take it, even if it is doing something that you think, oh, that's not what I want to do, but it could be a way to get into the business. Continue to look at news sites, websites that list their job openings. If you can get involved with local organizations like the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists for networking. There's an Atlanta Asian Society of Black Journalists. I'm sorry, Asian Association of Asian Journalists here
there you go.
in Atlanta. Yes, and also Hispanic journalists. So NAHJ also has an Atlanta chapter, right? So if you fit into any of those groups, get involved with the local Atlanta chapters as well. That's a way to network, and that's a way to find out about jobs. Networking is still important. It's going to be tighter to do because everyone's at home. We're not being social. Vincent, this week we would have been gathering for NABJ, and now we're not, right? It's all virtual.
Yeah.
So you know, look for those
Yeah.
organizations that you can join. If there's any way that students can find a mentor in this business to help them and help them navigate through this time, that's also a helpful thing. Networking, mentors, and looking for those opportunities. And sometimes you just have to create them in order to get yourself prepared to step into a newsroom.
Thank you for that. I know it's just a really difficult time, but I think that's really sound advice and it's truthful advice, and that's just where we are in the world today. But speaking of that, Jovita, I'm looking at the time, and I know that you need to get back to the news desk. I mean, your day is not over at all. So I think we're going to just leave it here for now until next time. But I cannot thank you enough for joining us on AI Live.
Thank you for having me. This was a very special opportunity. We've talked about working together in the past, so thank you so much. And I hope that the students out there who are watching got something out of it. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but
You're not.
definitely want to be realistic. And it's a tough time right
No.
now. And I think a lot of industries across the board are going to find themselves challenged with hiring. And then there are industries, you know what, if you can tutor kids, that might be the job for you right now because everyone's also trying to figure out what to do with their school children. So this is one of those times, Vincent, that I think even after 9/11, and after the recession, when the housing industry, the housing bubble burst, you know, people
Yeah.
have to find new ways to recreate themselves, and this is one of those times for us.
Yeah, I mean, I come from the belief that you just have to be resourceful and resilient. Whatever that means to you, make just make it your own. But you have to be creative at tough times like these.
Agree. I
So
agree. I definitely think that's the lesson for 2020. So
yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us on AI Live, Jovita, and just have a wonderful broadcast on WSB tonight.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. You're welcome. Bye bye.